Can't complain. How about you?
Stop.
Do anything fun?
Enjoyed watching you guys play.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be there. Watched a lot of football.
There you go.
It was good.
Can't complain with that.
Cam, is this it?
How do you prepare for a challenge like the Colts, a team that is overperforming and they're in a tight fight like you guys are for a playoff spot?
Yeah, I think, when you get to this point of the year, everybody's fighting, been playing football for a long time. And so I think it's going to be a really good challenge for us. Another, back-to-back road game. So another game on the road. Going to have to deal with noise, all that stuff. And so it's going to take, obviously, coming off the short week, a good week of practice, walkthroughs, getting good mental reps throughout the week.
Being able to beat the Chiefs, does that elevate your confidence knowing that you beat the defending champions? And if you beat them, you guys can pretty much beat anybody you're facing, right?
I think we try to take it as, try to worry about ourselves. And obviously it was a great win for us last week. But, I think if you just go based off results week to week, the NFL is so up and down. So I think, we try to stay pretty even keel as much as possible and, not really based on the results week to week, but rather how we're preparing, how we're performing, all those things.
You watched the video of your performance on Monday. What are your takeaways from it?
Yeah, obviously didn't have my best game, and we didn't do much offensively in the pass game. And I think, like I said after the game, I missed some opportunities that were there. And so, I think it's week to week. You got to try to improve as much as possible, and try to execute when Sunday or whatever the game comes around.
How much emphasis have you guys been taking on taking care of the football? It's been 3 out of the last 4 games where there's no interceptions, taking care of the balls. How important is that for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think just being able to give our defense a chance for the most part is huge for us. Our defense is playing super well, and so for us to, obviously we want to score as many points as possible. We want to, play how we played against the Chargers, but sometimes it's a team sport, so there's ups and downs on both sides of the ball, and our defense has done an awesome job keeping us in a lot of games. And so, yeah, like you said, to not turn the ball over, I think is huge confidence for our offense going forward and our whole team.
Aidan, Coach Pierce kind of compared your poker face to when you played with Eli Manning. And, how were you able to kind of stay mentally tough without completing a pass for a couple quarters there and just hold all the way through?
Like I said, I think it's because it's a team game. I'm really happy I don't play an individual sport. I don't know. I wouldn't do very well. And so to have guys to rely on, I think, is a beautiful part of the sport we play. I think, if a team can win different games, obviously we want to win every game by a lot of points. But, there's been times this year where, all 3 phases have had to step up. And so, I think, just the confidence that the guys around me give me, I think is huge. I think, there's a sense that they understand how hard it is and what it takes to move the ball down the field as an entire offense. And so as we're maybe, stalling in a game like that, I think the guys stay confident. We understand that it's not just about, the last possession. You have to look at the big picture and try to execute as much as possible. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. I think for the most part, though, I have great coaches around me, great players around me that really help me try to, be the best player I can be.
So, Aidan, to that point, with the defense playing the way that they're playing, does that take some of the load off of your shoulders in terms of not necessarily having to do too much?
I think, again, we try to execute as best possible. I think, we don't go into a game thinking, our defense is going to bail us out here or there. Obviously, they have, and they've done an awesome job of that, and we're confident they're going to do that, obviously, because they've showed it. But we want to perform as best we can. I think individually and collectively as different units on the offense, and then as a whole group, I think, we want to challenge ourselves to score as many points as possible, but also be as efficient as possible, make good decisions with everything we do. And so, it's like I keep saying, it's a team sport. So you got to rely on each other sometimes, and that's what we've been doing.
You've had a unique first season in the NFL. What is the biggest thing you've learned so far?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think definitely how long the season is. I'll give you 2. How long the season is one thing. There's been a lot of football played so far, and we still got more to play. And I think the other thing is how up and down everything is. I think week to week there's so much that goes into each game that requires to go out there and perform well. And so I think you have to work as hard as possible each day, each week to give yourself a chance when the game comes around.
Have you thought at all about, kind of the juxtaposition of you with this franchise? This franchise has been known as the bad boys of the NFL, and you're this quiet, Middle America, humble guy, starting, leading the charge at quarterback. Think about that at all?
I think I have, a little bit to my personality maybe sometimes that people don't know about that can come out in different times. But, I'm just trying to have as much fun as possible. I get to play quarterback in the NFL, and I'm in a really cool spot in a really great organization. So haven't thought too much about that, but I'm really just, trying to have as much fun as possible. And, it's been fun.
Are there any characteristics like you feel you have or you need to possess to make the rest of the team play hard for you, especially when you're not having your best game?
Yeah, I think a lot comes from preparation. I think I try to be somebody who the guys look to as someone that works really hard. I try to do extra as much as possible, not so they can see me, but just because I know I need to, and I want to be. Whenever the game comes around and when it's 3rd and 8 or whatever it is, I want to be confident that I put in all the work needed to be ready for that moment. And it takes a lot of work in the NFL, especially playing quarterback, and that's something I've had to learn. And so I think again I've been lucky enough to have trust and confidence from a lot of guys to me, both verbally and how they act towards me. And so it puts me in a position where I can have great confidence when I go on the field. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Aidan. Thank you.
Davante, it feels like you guys are kind of getting to the point where everybody can rely on everybody. Offense, defense, offense. Everybody's picked each other up at various points. How good a feeling is that for a team, knowing that everybody's got each other back?
It's a great feeling. I mean, it's definitely the intention of the team. Pretty selfless team. A lot of great players, obviously, and I think we're starting to learn how to play together. All units together. We just got to still just figure out a way to play better on offense. Our defense is playing really well right now, carrying the team, and our special teams has been lights out this year. So we just got to find a way to be more consistent, just so we can, we don't end up being that weak link of the squad. Especially with the talent that we have. So just finding a way to be more consistent.
Davante, there were times you guys got wins earlier in the year, and you had better numbers in those wins than you had in this win, and you still weren't really satisfied with how the team, played. Why are you so much happier now with a win like against the Chiefs than you were earlier in the year?
It's the Chiefs. That changes a lot. It's a big game for us, big time of the year, and then these are the ones where sometimes you just gotta get gritty and just find a way to get the dub, and you can correct things, but early in the season you're trying to establish an identity, and you obviously don't want to settle for a win like the one versus the Packers or the Patriots. That's not our standard of football, and I don't think collectively that even this wasn't our best ball, but it was definitely our best win of the year. So sometimes you just gotta swallow your pride and find a way to still be excited and joyful, even though you didn't really maximize everything you could have done, but still was definitely a good feeling.
Being able to beat the defending champs, does that just show you guys like any given Sunday you guys can go and get that result and potentially win out?
Yeah, I've been saying that all year. It don't really matter who we are playing. This team in particular, it kind of just depends on who we go out as, that day. That's how football is in the NFL. It's not about how good you are, it's about how good you play. So, you can be the best team in the world, which is, they have been for quite a bit of time now, but they weren't on Monday. So that's how it works.
Do you give yourself a little time to look at what the various scenarios are? You guys have played your way into a position where, there's things out there to play for now.
You hear about it, but I don't really get too focused on that. If it, especially when it's a situation where, we most likely have to win all the games. You can't get too focused on all that other stuff because, if you start worrying about what other people are doing, if you win a game and it's the last game of the year and then you want to watch and see, if a team beats a team to help you out, that's one thing. But I think just being focused in the moment is what got us to win, our last two. So we just got to stick to that formula.
People talk periphery stuff, victory cigars, all that stuff, but preparation-wise, what difference has Antonio made football-wise, just a day-to-day basis football-wise?
Everything we do, we do it with a purpose, and it's you can tell him being a former player, he's not he's not really into all the extra stuff just to do it. It's all very intentional, everything that we do, and you know, the mindset that he brings. Having a certain coach sometimes can just allow certain players to, you know, realize their full potential and continue to go and be who they're supposed to be. And I think you can see it with our defense, the way they're running around now. We got a lot of guys that have made some plays this year, but when you watch the way that those guys were competing to get after the ball carrier in that game, it's just definitely different than it was before. So, you know, having him leading those guys out there and, you know, sharing a few words, stories, whatever, it's clearly paid off.
He talks about being a Raider, embodying that Raider spirit, talking your talk, all that. But you also look at the fact that you guys are the least penalized team in the NFL. And it just feels like there's an understanding amongst players. Yeah, freedom still comes with some responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not just being free and being crazy out there, but doing it responsibly.
Yeah.
Do you feel like he's tapped into that?
Yeah, I mean, he's just preached it. You know, he's preached for guys to play fast, play, you know, with their hair on fire, and you know, play instinctually, and rather than playing scared. I don't really see anybody moving around timid out there like how it was before. So, you know, that makes a huge difference in the way you're allowed to execute, and you do things. And typically, if you're in control and you're playing as fast as you can, it's going to be to your advantage, and you're not going to end up playing with penalties and holding and a lot of the things that we struggled with last year or earlier on in the season. So just the way you talk to your guys is a useful tool, and he's done a good job with that.
There was a lot of talk in the media about how well the team performs on Christmas Day will have a lot to do with Antonio keeping the job going forward. How much did that play a factor in your head, you know, with giving that extra effort, and how much do you think it played in the team's head to go out there and play for him? Yeah,
well, I think it's just more about I don't know if the team's like, oh, let's go and ball out for AP to get the job. You know, that's not really the thought process of the guys, but it's more about playing as hard as you can for the man himself, and then, you know, those things kind of work themselves out. So it definitely gave him a better shot, and I'm definitely rooting for him. I mean, I love the guy, I love what he's brought, his mentality, his you know, his passion for the game is undeniable. You can see it every single day. His evolution as far as even speaking to the team and just the head coachness of the deal is something that you kind of got to learn and kind of come into your own. Same as being a captain on a team or, you know, a leader on a football team. You gotta learn the way to lead men, and he's done a great job of that. And he's been ever since he spoke to us when we had our little deal before Josh left. You know, he left a lasting impression on everybody, definitely me, and I think we connected from that.
Monte, take us inside the huddle as one of the leaders of this team. How do you handle when the team or the offense isn't moving the way it's supposed to? Do you say something? Do you not say something? Does it differ from game to game? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's not the same every time. You know, you kind of depends on what it is. You got to read the room too, see where everybody is mentally. Sometimes it's, you know, you can see it in guys' eyes that it's a little, you know, a lot going on in their head, and those are the times where you usually speak up. But everybody's out there trying to do the right thing, so it's not like you're in a huddle barking or anything like that. It's more sidelines is when you do that type of stuff. You know, timeouts will sometimes speak to each other, but for the most part, everybody's locked in and, you know, confident in the huddle. So it's not too much that needs to go on in there. But obviously, you look at the production of the offense and you think that, you know, we need to say something, but that's not really the time. You don't really have too much time anyway. You got to get the call in and get to the line. So, like I said, when we get to the sideline, that's something that we try to do and make sure we, you know, figure out whatever we need to figure out, whether it's calls or, you know, getting somebody's mind right or whatever it is.
Is there something about Aidan's demeanor, you know, humble or tough, that maybe the team would get more, you know, irritated with another quarterback not being able to complete a pass for a few quarters, but with him, his temperament, is it something that stops that from happening? Or?
No, I mean, look, this is a very tough game. This was a weird game in itself, and it's something that, I mean, what is it going to do? The best quarterback or you know, most experienced or most inexperienced, it's not going to help getting out there and putting extra pressure and showing frustration or coming down on somebody. So regardless of what his temperament is like or his personality, that has nothing to do with it. We just doing what's best for any quarterback and trying to be the best teammates that we can to, you know, help a young, inexperienced guy who's trying to, you know, playing against one of the best quarterbacks, you know, the game has seen. It's not going to be an easy matchup. So we try to do the best job we can of, you know, keeping his mind right and making sure he stays confident even when it's, you know, tough times like that. And, you know, he didn't draw it up the way that it ended up, but, you know, we got the dub, so it's something that we can learn from and move on.
You guys have a pretty young secondary, but how have you seen them grow from some of the guys on the team last year to training camp this year all the way to being able to do what they did against Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a bunch of dogs out there, and when you got some dogs, whether you're young, old, or in between, it kind of doesn't matter. You know, you got to just turn it on, and as long as you're confident out there flying around and playing that position, I mean, other than quarterback, it's probably the most difficult position to play out there. So proud of those guys in the way they've been flying around and you know, tackling, catching the ball, and scoring touchdowns, helping us out too. So, you know, we all work this thing together.
Thanks, Tate.
Thank you.
Thank you.